Hello and welcome along to another episode of Robin and Jane in the Stalls, or rather Robin and Jane in the Cells this week, because we've been catapulted back to the year 1976. We've been inside in Long Kesh Prison for the Terry George play The Tunnel, which is currently running at Belfast Lyric Theatre. For people who don't know who Terry George is, he's an Oscar winner. He's the guy behind movies like In the Name of the Father, Some Mother's Son, The Boxer, Hotel Rwanda, and loads more. But this is the first time in 40 years we've seen this play. It was originally produced in New York back in 1986, and now it's here in Belfast on stage at the Lyric. Jane, we were there, and I have to say it's probably the best 90 minutes that I've spent in the theatre in a long time.
I couldn't agree more. What was interesting was how frightening and how darkly humorous it was. I think one of the clever things that Terry George does, and he's a very clever author, is not include the British prison officers. That makes it in a way more scary. You can imagine them off scene, and you hear bullets being fired, you hear the anti-aircraft, sort of the missile, the searchlights going on, and you can imagine it all, that they are surrounded by the enemy, because this is, after all, a kind of war. There's no question about that. And yet it is darkly humorous. It opens with one of the characters, Harry, the very brilliant Kieran Nolan, dressed as a priest, taking confession from the newbie who's come in, and hearing all sorts of untoward things, including how he's ended up in Long Kesh. And it was really bad luck. He didn't run fast enough. There were some arms hidden away, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he gets 10 years for what seems a fairly minor misdemeanor, actually.
One of the things I love most about this play as well, at times in it, even though you've got a prison set the whole time on stage, you kind of forget that they're in prison because they're not in prison uniform, they're in their own clothes, and that kind of helps bring the real life stories from outside into the prison as well, doesn't it?
Oh, there are brilliant stories, and there are stories of the families and the wives left behind, the wives who may or may not be being unfaithful. And you sense the absolute tension of being in this confined space with these men, and yet, as you say, having other lives before, which they can't rejoin. I thought Martin McCann as Sean was absolutely brilliant. He is the moral compass of the play, really. He's the one who, towards the end, says that he can't stand the killing anymore, and he's not going to go on with it, in conversation with Barney, the old guy, who's brilliant, by Vincent Higgins. I think all the acting was outstanding, don't you?
The actors were superb, and they're all so well chosen for the roles as well. Martin McCann, who we've mentioned already, of course, everybody's going to see him because they've seen him in Blue Lights. We can't wait for Blue Lights to return on TV. He plays Stevie in Blue Lights, but this character was a million miles away from Stevie.
Oh, he was a million miles away. He was the hard man who thinks twice, who is prepared to reconsider his position, really. And yet he's in conflict with some of the other characters. I mean, I actually liked the dark humor. There was one point where they were playing Monopoly, and one of them gets the go to jail card, and he says, "How can this be? I'm already in jail. That can't work." Then there's a quite sinister and a very clever scene where they play the Ouija board.
Yes.
And they try and get in touch with the paranormal. And at the end, and you wonder if somebody, maybe BB, the bully, is pushing the glass or not. There is a message about a spy being in their midst. And this repeats and repeats. And of course, that leads us to a very affecting and very harrowing ending. I think a different and lesser playwright would have ended it when the tunnel is tunneled and three of them make their escape, but they're not going to make it. That could have been an ending, but it wasn't the ending, was it?
It could have been Belfast's answer to The Great Escape, really.
It was, in a way. I mean, somebody said to me this was Colditz or The Great Escape for Provos.
Yeah.
And in a way, it kind of is, but it's so much more. It's so much more than that. It's more than The Great Escape. And the final scene I found almost painful to watch, I must say.
Very painful. Now, you are the queen of the spoilers. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to say what happens because
no, but it was very pathetic in the true sense. It was pathos.
It was. At the end of this show, nobody could possibly predict what is going to happen. And I mean, really, what an ending, you know? In fact, what a show as well. 45 minutes each half. And when you think about it, they pack so much into that 45 minutes in each part.
They did, because we actually get the beginnings of the tunnel. We get the kind of strict commanding officer, Frank, who's trying to keep them under control and not entirely succeeding. We do get an informer who's having to be dealt with in a very unpleasant way during a football match. We get their previous lives. You're right, so much is packed in and it's sped by, and that's always a sign of great production, is if you feel the time is passing very quickly. And yet time passes so slowly for them. And you got that sense of being in a confined space, being in a claustrophobic world very well, I thought.
And you get the sense of the timing of this play as well. From the minute you sit down before the show begins, you're hit with music from 1976. You're already transported back to that period of time.
Yes, you've got the Eagles, you've got hot chocolate, you've got it all. And that's the world that they're losing when they go into prison. And I thought the set was very good too. It had that dinginess about it, and a world cut off. And that was very good. And of course, they're all fearful because a new prison block is going to be constructed with hideous cells in which they're going to be incarcerated in even more constraint, really. And that was hanging over them. And they want to escape. And they want to escape their circumstances, really, or at least one or two of them do. They all have different stories to tell, of course.
And of course, a lot of these stories are obviously true as well, because the play is based on Terry George's own experiences in Long Kesh back in the 70s.
Yes, he was there for a couple of years. And obviously, this has the whiff of authenticity, doesn't it? It has the absolute ring of truth, I think, in the language, in the actions, and I suppose in the denouement, which we're not going to touch on.
We're not. And of course, we've seen a lot of plays recently based on similar subjects to this as well. But I have to say, there's something different about this play.
There is something different about this play. I think it's the humanity, in a way, the sense of the real characters. And I think it's very clever that the British officers aren't presented, because they're a fearful presence off stage, and they're being perhaps heard, perhaps seen, glimpsed, always feared for what they might bring, but they're not actually seen. And I think that's quite a clever thing to do.
You mentioned the humour earlier on. Humour does play a big part in this, and especially with most Irish plays, we can always find the humour in the darkest of situations. There's plenty in this as well. Kieran Nolan, who of course we all know from playing wee Sandy from the Knee Breakers on Give My Headpiece, he's kind of brought in as a comic relief character, and he does that character very well.
He does, when he plays the priest and so on, and when he plays the fool. Yes, he does do that character very well, but it all changes as we know. But yes, I think the humour is extremely well done, as well as the pathos, and you get the mix. So you get real life, and there is a sense of life here ongoing, even though they are away from their real lives.
Must mention Chris Corrigan as well, who plays the kind of leader of them all in prison. He's a guy you don't want to mess with.
Oh my goodness, he's the hard man, isn't he? Yes, he does that totally well. He's so taught that you feel he could almost break at times, trying to keep them under control, under very violent control, really, at times. But no, he was brilliant.
So I mentioned in the intro as well, this play was first staged in New York 40 years ago, back in 1986. The movie director, Jim Sheridan, he directed it way back then as well.
Yes.
And of course, he was there on Friday night. He was in the audience, and we had a little vino with him at the end of the show.
We did have a good conversation with him at the end of the show. And he acted in the original production as well, which I think
he played the Vincent Higgins part, Barney, didn't he? Yes.
Yes, he played Barney. Yes, he did. No, he'd obviously enjoyed it and said he thought it was a very good production. And I think that was very interesting. It was lovely to meet him. It was an honour.
It was indeed. Okay, let's make up our final decisions then on the tunnel, which continues, of course, at the Lyric Theatre through until the 16th of August. This play is being performed by the brilliant Brassneck Theatre Company. And Jane, since we're talking about digging tunnels and great escapes, there's only one thing we can vote with this week, and that's the little shovels.
Well, I'm going to give it 4.5 shovels. I definitely am, because it was brilliant. It was thought-provoking, it was harrowing, it was funny. It has it all, actually.
It really does. I completely...
And it hasn't dated. I mean, that's the impressive thing. To think that it's 40 years on, and yet it still seems fresh and relevant in many ways.
It definitely does. It really is fresh, relevant. It zips through in 90 minutes as well. So as I said, it runs at the Lyric until the 16th of August. So do go out and get your tickets for this show. It is a fabulous night out. So I'm going to go for 5 little shovels, Jane.
Excellent. Good work.
So there we go. That's the tunnel. Trust me on this one. Go and see it. You will not be disappointed. If you've seen anything else in the theatre, and let us know what you've been up to. We'd love to know your thoughts over on our social media pages. And Jane, it's going to be another busy month for us as well. So much happening. I think next up, it's Fiddler on the Roof at the Grand Opera House.
Yes, next one is Fiddler on the Roof. And I went to the ballet recently, the High Points Youth Ballet were doing their showcase, and it was very, very good. The little girls were enchanting, as you'd expect. The women danced superbly. I particularly liked Spartacus with the music by Khachaturian, and I liked some of the modern ballet too. There were some very interesting modern dance excerpts. So all in all, it was a very good day at the MAC, actually.
So there we go. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening as well. And we'll see you back in the stalls sometime very soon.
Goodbye.